The problem I have with retail VPNs, so I'll start from the beginning. So the retail VPNs became this market opportunity. There is this thing where people say, oh, I want to be more anonymous. I want to do privacy. I want to hide my IP address. I want to, feel more, maybe that makes them feel more secure, whatever it is. And there's this, it's kind of genius by the VPN retail people. They're like, oh my gosh, people are asking for this thing. We should give it to them. But while we're doing it, let's make it super like overblown. Let's make it like, hey, online privacy is important. You don't want to get hacked, do you? Like all this stuff. And let's add it. Maybe we'll sprinkle in a couple of security features that maybe make sense. Maybe they don't make sense depending on the context. And let's sell this product through subscription or whatever it is. So VPNs originally were literally just to connect to another network. And when you connect to another network and use their resources, use their network connection stuff, you're going to look like you're coming from their network instead of your own. So this worked really well for corporate offices. People still work from home. Like when you use them when you work from home, you dial in. So it looks like you're coming from the corporate network. You're accessing corporate resources, all that stuff. There's many different use cases for VPNs. The retail side and how that became a business was literally like, you can use a proxy server. We'll get into this. You can use Tor. You can use all these other tools instead of VPNs. But VPNs they kind of found a way to sell you that magic exe that you install it and it just works and makes you feel good. It's more about feeling good than what I actually think that it matters as far as protecting you and stuff. So that's one part. So they came from this idea of VPNs. VPNs are awesome, but usually they're like traditionally they've been used as this tunneling to get to another network and access resources. And they turn that into, hey, this makes people feel good. We can sell this as a product. Okay. So again, nothing wrong with VPNs, nothing wrong with even using them for privacy. However, when you start saying VPNs protect me, that's where it breaks down. That's where it becomes, what does protect mean? So if you think that changing your IP address where it looks like you're coming from somewhere else and not exposing your real IP address protects you from getting hacked, 9 times out of 10, it's not. That is, maybe it used to work that way in the 2000s, early 2000s, stuff like that, where we didn't have routers. We just kind of connected modems to the internet and you were exposed. Everything on your computer was exposed. You only had one computer. You didn't have multiple devices, all this stuff. A long time ago, that made a little bit more sense. But nowadays, every computer pretty much, like generally speaking, is behind NAT, which is network address translation, which is kind of like essentially like a network segmentation or a firewall. You can think of it as a firewall. It basically blocks everything, creates a separate network where you don't have any of these ports or other things that are exposed that you would normally have a long time ago that people may take advantage of. You may have other services running, all that. There's a whole lot to unpack. I'm trying to be simplistic here as much as possible, but essentially security has gotten a lot better than it was 20 years ago. So the need to hide your IP address is almost irrelevant for most things. If you're just a computer user. Now, if you're a server, those attacks still exist. If you're running a web server at home or in the cloud or wherever it is, and you're exposing other ports or other services or all these things, now security still applies to that. Now your IP address, which is publicly available because people need to know how to access your server, because a domain name, hex.com maps to an IP address. It's just like a nickname. It's just basically a domain name is like a nickname for an IP address. Think about it like that. So there's a lot of complexities, and again, I'm skipping over, but essentially, if you're running a server, your IP address is public anyways, but it can be a way that attackers can use to talk to the server and try different attacks and do stuff like that. If you're just a client, and when I say client, it's basically just, you're not running a server. You're not saying people come use my services. I'm going to use your services when you're a client. I'm going to go to your websites. I'm going to do stuff like that. A client could be your web browser, computer, whatever it is. Your standard computer user is a client of the internet, essentially. So those things, your IP address really doesn't matter most of the time, because there's nothing, if you're trying to hide it, it's for privacy. And I get the privacy aspect. The privacy aspect makes total sense. VPNs can do that. I think they're overkill, and I'll talk about that too. But VPNs can change that aspect. But in order to sell it and make that not such a weak point, if anyone ever talked about it, such as I'm doing now, the VPN providers, different ones, they try to, okay, we'll do other security features. We'll hide this, we'll hide that. We'll make, we'll give you some sort of kind of antivirus-like features here and there to make it look like we're giving you more and compete with other vendors. So this whole industry, again, was born from this like preying on the fear, essentially, of people feeling like they're going to get malware at every corner of the internet, which they still will do if you're running a VPN. A VPN doesn't protect your browser. Again, they'll say all these different little features and stuff like that, but I would argue that Chrome and Firefox have a lot of built-in security features that just you don't even need. Like you asked me yesterday about what antivirus for Windows, what I think about malware bytes and stuff. And my answer was Windows has Windows Defender. It's built in. It's great. It already works. Kind of the same with this, where your browser these days, 5 or 10 years ago wasn't the case, but these days they have world-class security teams working at Google who work on Chrome, and work at Microsoft who work on Edge and Internet Explorer, what it used to be and stuff. And same thing at Firefox. They have people who are designing these things to make the browser, the weakest link on the internet, more secure. So the whole need, I've never installed, again, security expert, you could call me, been working professionally in the field for over 10 years. I've never installed a VPN on any computer at home that I can think of that I would use at home. I only installed it to when I'm traveling, so I could look like I'm coming from somewhere else, to get around censorship or whatever I was needing to do, watch Netflix, whatever it was. Or if I felt like I was traveling again, but I'm connecting to an insecure network. Now, just want to frame this 2 more points before we move on. The point where the security versus privacy. So people say, oh, you can't have one without the other, blah, blah. Forget the philosophical part. I want to focus on the technical aspect of what the VPN, essentially, what people use it for. What's the primary feature? It changes your IP address. And I want to go back to that and again say, most attacks do not rely on you exposing your IP address. Now, privacy-wise, you may not want your IP address to end up in certain logs for using certain services or using dApps or whatever it is. That's fine. A VPN can help with that. Again, it's overkill. I'll talk about proxy servers and stuff like that. But the fact that you change your IP address doesn't help from going to a malicious website and them installing a malware, or you downloading exe and running it and getting hacked, or downloading a torrent and getting hacked. VPN does nothing to prevent that. Or it may have some little tiny feature that it claims to do, which probably doesn't work very well because they usually don't have world-class teams that the other bigger companies do. They're running these browsers and operating systems and stuff. So again, the focus away from IP address and the focus on where these attacks actually happen, which is you're running an old browser, get exploited by some exploit or malware. Otherwise, you download exe, you go to a malicious place. Your VPN changing your IP address doesn't really do much there. It may change your browser profile, may help a little bit against targeted stuff, but generally speaking, you're installing it and you're also adding attack surface. There have been exploits for VPN software. So it's like, ironically, sometimes, and security software too, antiviruses, there's a lot of stuff that's affected by this. But ironically, if you install VPN software and they have security bugs in that software and they're hooked into your most exposed thing in the world, which is your web browser, you could be increasing your attack surface and getting, increasing your likelihood of getting hacked if someone finds a bug in the VPN software and starts exploiting it and using that as a place to hack people and stuff. So I just want to shift the conversation away from VPNs being for security to VPNs being for privacy, where they make sense. However, I'll get into a minute about proxy servers and stuff, how they can be this lighter way of doing it, and a free way, even a lot of times too. And we'll talk about Tor too. But VPNs for privacy, fine. Censorship resistance, fine. All that's traveling, whatever. But they do not stop you from getting hacked. They do not really help in that regard. And there's a lot of other cheaper, faster, I was talking about PulseChain, cheaper, faster, censorship resistant networks that can be more beneficial for you. So